You want to know when I stopped believing the posters, when I stopped thinking of them as Huns and started seeing them as men? It was a Wednesday in October, 1918. I remember because it was my sister's birthday back home in Cleveland. I'd been in France for 5 months by then. Long enough to know what a gas attack sounded like. Long enough to know the difference between incoming and outgoing shells. Long enough to have killed men I never saw. They told us the Germans were monsters. I believed it too at first. The recruiting posters back home showed them bayoneting babies, burning churches, raping women. They called them barbarians, animals, less than human. Made it easier, I suppose. Easier to shoot at shadows in the dark. Easier to throw grenades into dugouts. Easier to sleep at night when you told yourself you were killing monsters, not men with mothers and sisters having birthdays. I was a rifleman with the 77th Division. New York's own, they called us. Most of the boys in my company were city kids like me, sons of immigrants, iron workers, factory hands, delivery boys. We'd trained together at Camp Upton on Long Island, shipped out in April of 18. My sergeant was a man named Patrick Riley, Irish, built like a brick shithouse, could curse in 3 languages. He'd been with the British before America entered the war, seen things at the Somme that he wouldn't talk about. Sometimes you'd catch him just staring at nothing, and you knew better than to ask what he was seeing. Riley told us once during training, "The propaganda is horse shit. They're soldiers, same as us. They bleed the same, they cry the same, they die the same. But you still gotta kill them, because if you don't, they'll kill you." I didn't understand what he meant. Not then. By October, we were part of the Meuse-Argonne offensive. Grinding through the Argonne forest, taking casualties, gaining ground, losing ground, taking it back again. Every day the same. Wake up, attack, dig in, try not to die. Repeat. That's when we captured them. That's when everything changed for me. The attack started before dawn. We'd been told there was a German strongpoint dug into a hillside about half a mile ahead. Machine gun nests, observation posts, trenches. Our orders were to take it. Artillery pounded the position for 2 hours. We watched from our jumping-off point, eating cold beans from tins, checking our rifles for the 100th time. Nobody talked much. What was there to say? When the barrage lifted, we went over. The morning was foggy, thick enough that you could barely see 20 feet ahead. Good for us, we thought, harder for them to shoot what they can't see. We moved through the forest in a skirmish line. Trees all around us, most of them shredded by weeks of shelling. The ground was torn up, muddy, littered with equipment and worse things. You learned not to look too closely at what you were stepping over. The Germans opened up when we got close. Machine gun fire cutting through the fog, that distinctive sound like fabric ripping. Men started dropping. Jimmy Kowalski from the Bronx went down clutching his stomach. Danny O'Brien took a round through the throat and drowned in his own blood before anyone could reach him. We hit the dirt, returned fire at muzzle flashes we could barely see. Sergeant Riley was shouting orders, but the noise swallowed most of his words. You just did what the man next to you was doing and hoped it was right. I fired my rifle at shadows. Don't know if I hit anything. Don't know if I wanted to. Then our artillery started up again. Shells landing on the German position, exploding in orange flashes through the fog. The machine guns went quiet. Riley screamed for us to move, and we rushed forward before they could recover. We reached their trenches and jumped in. I expected a fight. Expected to go hand-to-hand with these monsters we'd been told about. What I found was worse than fighting. The artillery had done its work. The trench was a slaughterhouse, bodies torn apart, mixed with dirt and wood and metal. The smell hit me first. Explosive residue and blood and shit and something sweet and rotten that I later learned was human beings coming apart. And in the middle of it all, huddled at the bottom of the trench, were 6 German soldiers, alive, terrified, hands up, screaming words I didn't understand but knew the meaning of. Please, don't kill us. We surrender. They were the first German soldiers I'd seen up close, the first ones I'd seen as anything other than targets or corpses. They looked exactly like us. I stood there, rifle pointed at them, finger on the trigger, and I couldn't move, couldn't think. Everything I'd been told, everything I'd believed was colliding with what I was seeing. They were young. God, they were so young. One of them couldn't have been more than 17. Baby-faced kid with blonde hair matted with dirt and blood. He was crying. Not sobbing, just silent tears running down his face, cutting tracks through the grime. Another one was older, maybe 30. He had a thick mustache and glasses that were cracked. One lens was missing entirely. He was the one doing most of the talking, hands raised high, saying the same words over and over. Kamerad, Kamerad, bitte, bitte. I knew enough to understand. Comrade, please. These weren't monsters. They were just scared men who wanted to live. Sergeant Riley pushed past me, looked at the prisoners, looked at the carnage around us, spat on the ground. "Search 'em," he said. "Take their weapons, any intelligence. Then we march 'em back to the line." Private Eddie Walsh from Hell's Kitchen stepped forward. Eddie was always angry. Lost his brother at Chateau Thierry, blamed every German who ever lived. He'd told us more than once what he'd do if he ever got his hands on a live one. He walked up to the oldest German, the one with the broken glasses, stood right in front of him. The German looked terrified, kept his hands up, kept saying, "Bitte, bitte." Eddie stared at him for a long time. We all held our breath. Nobody moved. Then Eddie reached out and took the German's canteen off his belt, opened it, sniffed it. "Water," he said. His voice was flat, dead. He handed the canteen back to the German. The German took it with shaking hands, nodded, said something soft in German. "Yeah," Eddie said, "whatever." We searched them, found letters from home, photographs. One of them had a picture of a woman and 2 little girls. He kept trying to show it to us, pointing at it, saying, meine Kinder, my children." The young blonde kid had a harmonica in his pocket. A goddamn harmonica. I wondered if he'd played it in the trenches. If music had made this hell a little more bearable. They had rations, too. Stale black bread, some kind of preserved sausage. Their food was worse than ours, and ours was barely edible. They looked half-starved. The war was grinding them down, same as it was grinding us. We lined them up and started marching them back through the forest. They walked with their hands on their heads, stumbling over roots and shell holes. One of them twisted his ankle and fell. The man next to him helped him up without being told. I watched that. Watched one German soldier help another. Watched them take care of each other the same way we took care of our boys. Behind us, the battle continued. Artillery rumbling, rifle fire crackling. Men dying for a few yards of forest that would be worthless in a month when the war ended. We all knew it was ending. Everyone knew, but we kept killing each other anyway. The walk back took about an hour. We had to move slow because of the wounded German with the bad ankle. Nobody complained. We were all too tired, too numb. Other soldiers stared at us as we passed. Some shouted things, called the prisoners Krauts and Huns, made threats. The prisoners kept their eyes down, kept walking. One of our guys, a replacement who'd only been with us a week, spat at them, hit the young blonde kid in the face. The kid flinched but didn't say anything, just wiped it off and kept walking. Sergeant Riley grabbed the replacement by his collar. "They're prisoners," he said quietly. Dangerous quiet. "They're done fighting. You want to be a tough guy? Go find some that ain't surrendered." The replacement backed off. We reached the command post around noon, handed the prisoners over to the MPS. Before they took them away, the older German with the broken glasses turned to me. He'd figured out I was the youngest in our group, I guess, closest to his age. He reached into his pocket slowly, carefully, like he was afraid we'd shoot him. Pulled out a photograph, the one of his wife and daughters. showed it to me one more time. "For stayin'?" he said. "Understand?" I looked at the photograph. Two little girls in white dresses, holding hands, their mother standing behind them, hand on their shoulders, all of them smiling at the camera. "Yeah," I said, "I understand." He nodded, put the photograph away. Then the MPs took them and I never saw him again. We got hot food that afternoon, real coffee, first decent meal in days, sat in a dugout and ate without talking. Eddie Walsh sat next to me staring at his cup. "I wanted to kill him," Eddie said finally. "The one with the glasses. I wanted to kill him so bad." "Why didn't you?" I asked. "Because he looked at me," Eddie said, "and I saw my father. My old man has the same kind of eyes, same way of standing, and I thought about his family getting a telegram, thought about those kids losing their dad, and I couldn't." He threw his coffee cup against the trench wall. "God damn it. This would be easier if they were monsters." Sergeant Riley overheard. "It would be easier," he agreed, "but they're not. Never were. The only monsters in this war are the ones who started it and the ones who kept it going. The rest of us are just trying to survive." That night we moved back up to the line. The forest was quiet, too quiet. You could hear men coughing in the German trenches across from us, human sounds, men clearing their throats, shifting positions, living. I wondered if the soldiers over there had families too, photographs in their pockets, children waiting at home. Of course they did. The war ended a month later, November 11th, 11 o'clock. The guns stopped and we were supposed to cheer. Some men did. Most of us just sat there in stunned silence. We'd won. They kept telling us we'd won. But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like we'd all lost something we could never get back. They kept us in France through the winter. Occupation duty, they called it. We were stationed in a small German town near the Rhine. The locals were sullen, defeated, hungry. We were supposed to be their conquerors, but I couldn't hate them, couldn't see them as the enemy anymore. I saw the old women in black, mourning their sons and husbands. Saw the children with hollow eyes and swollen bellies from malnutrition. Saw the men our age, the ones missing arms or legs or eyes, begging in the streets. The same things we'd seen in France, the same things we'd see in America if we'd lost. One day in December, I was on patrol through the town, turned a corner and nearly ran into a man coming the other way. He was German, mid-30s, thin as a rail, had a thick mustache and wore cracked glasses with one lens missing. I knew him immediately. The prisoner from the forest, the one with the photograph. We stared at each other. He recognized me too. I could see it in his eyes. For a long moment neither of us moved. Then he reached into his coat. I tensed, hand going to my rifle, but he pulled out that photograph again. The wife and daughters. He showed it to me. They were still smiling in the picture. Frozen in time, in that moment before the war touched them. He pointed at the photograph, then at a house down the street. "Mine house," he said. My house. He'd made it home, made it back to them. I nodded, smiled. It felt strange, smiling at a German, but also right. "Danke," he said. "Thank you." For what? For not killing him? For treating him like a human being? For letting him come home to those little girls? "Yeah," I said. Didn't know what else to say. He nodded, put the photograph away, and walked past me toward his house. I watched him go, watched him open the door and slip inside. Through the window, I saw those little girls run to him, saw him kneel down and wrap his arms around them, saw his wife standing in the doorway, hand over her mouth. I turned away, kept walking, had to wipe my eyes. Told myself it was the cold wind. But it wasn't the wind. I thought about all the men who wouldn't have that reunion. The ones we'd killed. The ones they'd killed. All those photographs in all those pockets of people who would wait forever for someone who was never coming home. I thought about the propaganda posters, the lies they told us, the hate they manufactured. And I thought about how easy it was to kill a monster, how hard it was to kill a man. They'd made sure we saw monsters, because if we'd seen men from the start, maybe we wouldn't have fought at all. I came back to Cleveland in the spring of 1919, got a job at the steel mill, married my sweetheart Sarah, tried to build a normal life. On the surface, I managed it, went to work, came home, raised 3 kids, looked like everyone else. But I never forgot those prisoners, never stopped seeing that photograph. Those little girls in their white dresses, smiling at a camera, not knowing their father was sitting in a trench, waiting to die. The nightmares weren't about the fighting, weren't about the shells or the gas or the blood. They were about faces, German faces, wondering which ones I'd killed, wondering if I'd made orphans, if somewhere in Germany there were children who grew up without a father because of me. My son asked me once when he was about 12 if I'd been a hero in the war. I didn't know how to answer that. How do you explain that there were no heroes? That we were all just scared boys with rifles, following orders, trying not to die? I survived, I told him. That's all. He looked disappointed, wanted stories of bravery and glory. I couldn't give him that, wouldn't. When the Second War came in 1939, I watched young men line up to enlist again, watched them believe the same propaganda, different posters, same lies, different enemy, same hate. My oldest boy wanted to enlist, came to me asking for permission, eyes bright with patriotic fever. He was 19, same age I'd been. I told him no, told him about the prisoners, told him about the German with the photograph, told him that the enemy wasn't monsters, they were men, men with families and dreams and every reason to live that we had. But Dad, he said, this time it's different. This time they really are evil. Maybe the leaders are, I said. The ones who started it, yeah, but the boys in the trenches, the ones doing the dying, they're just like you, and when you shoot them, they bleed red same as you will, and their mothers cry the same as yours would. He didn't understand. Enlisted anyway, against my wishes. Fought in North Africa, then Italy. Made it home with shrapnel scars and nightmares of his own. Now he understands. Now he knows what I tried to tell him, but he had to learn it the same way I did, the same way every generation learns it. We never learn from each other. We only learn from the dying. I'm 63 years old now. The Great War is 42 years behind me. Most of the men I served with are dead. Sergeant Riley died in 1948, drank himself to death. Eddie Walsh made it until 1955, then put a gun in his mouth one night. The war got him eventually, just took longer than most. Sometimes I wonder about that German soldier. If he's still alive. If those little girls grew up happy. If they remember their father coming home from the war. I hope so. I hope at least one story had a good ending, but I doubt it. Because 20 years after we fought them, we went back and did it all again. And the children in the photographs from the First War became the soldiers in the trenches of the Second. And the cycle continued. We never came back from that forest. The part of me that believed in righteous wars and evil enemies died there in that trench, looking at 6 terrified men who were supposed to be monsters. What came home was someone who knew the truth, that we're all just men, that war doesn't have heroes, only survivors, that the real enemy isn't the boys across no man's land. It's the hate that puts us there in the first place. And that hate, that's the only monster that was ever real.